Elena's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she stared at the papers in front of her. The matchmaker, a heavy-set woman with too much perfume and a plastic smile, pushed them closer across the scarred wooden table. "You need to decide today," the woman said in their native language. "The American has already paid half the fee. He's expecting an answer." Elena looked at the photo again. James Mitchell, 38 years old, business consultant. The picture showed a tall man with dark hair, standing stiff and formal in front of what looked like an expensive house. His face was hard to read. Not quite angry, but definitely not warm either. His eyes seemed to look right through the camera, cold and distant. She felt sick. 2 months ago, Elena had been working at the village school, teaching children their letters and numbers. She loved that job, even though it barely paid enough to help her mother. Then her father died suddenly and everything fell apart. The medical bills from his final weeks in the hospital crushed them. Her younger sister, Natalia, only 14, needed surgery they couldn't afford. Their small house was about to be taken by the bank. That's when her mother's friend mentioned the agency. "Lots of girls do it," she had whispered. "American men want wives. They pay everything. You could send money home?" Elena had laughed at first. That was something desperate women did, not teachers. Not her. But desperation has a funny way of changing what you think you'd never do. Now here she was, 3 weeks later, about to sign papers that would send her halfway around the world to marry a complete stranger. A man who probably saw her as nothing more than something he bought. The thought made her stomach turn. "He seems nice enough," the matchmaker said, though her tone suggested she'd said this 1,000 times before. "Stable job, good home. No drinking problems listed. You could do much worse, could she?" Elena wasn't sure anymore. The whole thing felt wrong, like she was selling herself. But when she thought about Natalia, about her mother's tired face and trembling hands as she tried to figure out which bill to pay first, Elena knew she didn't really have a choice. She signed the papers. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. There were more forms, a medical check, visa applications. James had sent a brief email through the agency. "Looking forward to meeting you. I'll arrange your flight," that was it. No questions about who she was, what she liked, nothing personal. Just business. Her mother cried the night before Elena left. Natalia clung to her, making her promise to call every week. Elena packed a single suitcase with everything she owned. As she zipped it closed, she wondered if she'd ever see this room again. The flight to America was the longest 16 hours of her life. Elena sat squeezed in an economy seat, unable to sleep, unable to eat. The woman next to her chatted happily about visiting her daughter in California. Elena just nodded, not trusting herself to speak without crying. What was she doing? She was flying to marry a man she'd never spoken to, a man whose language she barely understood, a man who lived in a country she'd only seen in movies. When the plane finally landed, Elena's legs felt like rubber as she walked through the airport. Everything was huge and overwhelming. Signs in English she couldn't read. People rushing everywhere. She clutched her passport like a lifeline, following the signs with little airplane symbols until she reached immigration. The officer looked at her papers, then at her face. "Mail order bride?" he asked, not unkindly, but the words still stung. She nodded. "Good luck," he said, stamping her passport. She'd need it. James was waiting in the arrivals area, holding a sign with her name. Elena spotted him immediately. He looked exactly like his photo, tall and serious, wearing dark jeans and a simple jacket. When their eyes met, he didn't smile. He just nodded and walked toward her. "Elena," he said, not a question, just a statement. His voice was deep and flat. "Yes," she managed, her English accent thick and uncertain. "Let me take your bag." He reached for her suitcase, and she instinctively pulled it back, then felt foolish. He raised an eyebrow but said nothing, just turned and started walking toward the exit. Elena hurried to keep up, her heart pounding. The parking lot was enormous. James led her to a dark blue sedan, unlocked it, and put her suitcase in the trunk. Elena stood there, unsure what to do, until he opened the passenger door and gestured for her to get in. The drive was silent, painfully silent. Elena watched the unfamiliar landscape pass by through the window. Wide highways, huge cars, buildings that seemed to stretch forever. Everything so different from her small village. She wanted to ask questions, but the words stuck in her throat. James kept his eyes on the road, his jaw tight. After what felt like an eternity, they turned onto a quiet street lined with large houses set back from the road. Trees everywhere, perfectly maintained lawns. James pulled into the driveway of a two-story house with white walls and black shutters. It looked like something from a magazine. Cold. Perfect. Intimidating. "We're here," James said, shutting off the engine. Elena followed him inside, clutching her purse. The house was immaculate. Clean lines, modern furniture, everything in its place. It felt more like a hotel than a home. There were no personal photos, no clutter, nothing that suggested an actual person lived here. James set her suitcase down in the entryway. "Your room is upstairs," he said, pointing to the staircase. "Second door on the right. There's a bathroom attached. You can settle in. Your room, not our room." Elena felt a small flash of relief mixed with confusion. "Kitchen is through there," he continued, gesturing vaguely. "Help yourself to whatever you need. I have to make some calls for work. We'll talk later." And just like that, he disappeared into another room, closing the door behind him. Elena stood alone in the entryway of this strange house, in this strange country, married to a strange man who couldn't even look at her for more than a few seconds. She picked up her suitcase and slowly climbed the stairs. The room he'd indicated was nice enough. Clean white walls, a comfortable-looking bed, a small desk by the window. The attached bathroom had fluffy towels and expensive-looking soap. Everything was provided, prepared, impersonal. Elena sat on the edge of the bed and finally let herself cry. Quiet tears that she muffled with her hand, terrified James might hear. What had she done? She'd sold herself to a man who treated her like an inconvenient houseplant, who couldn't even pretend to be welcoming. She thought about her family, probably sitting down to dinner right now in their tiny kitchen. She thought about Natalia's surgery, scheduled for next month, paid for with money James had already transferred. Money she'd agreed to earn by being here, being his wife, except James hadn't even tried to touch her. Hadn't asked her a single personal question. Had barely spoken at all. As the sun set outside her window, Elena unpacked her few belongings with shaking hands. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring. No idea what James expected from her. No idea what her life was supposed to be now. All she knew was that she was trapped, thousands of miles from home, bound by papers and money and obligation to a man who looked at her like she was a problem he had to solve. That first night, Elena cried herself to sleep in a comfortable bed in a beautiful house, more alone than she'd ever felt in her entire life. She had no idea that everything she feared about James Mitchell was wrong, or that the truth would turn out to be even more impossible to believe. Elena woke up disoriented, forgetting for a moment where she was. Then reality crashed back. The unfamiliar room. The silent house. James. She checked her phone. 6 a.m. Back home, her mother would be making tea, Natalia getting ready for school. Here she had no idea what she was supposed to do. Downstairs she heard movement, footsteps, the sound of a coffee maker. Elena forced herself out of bed, splashed water on her face and went downstairs, her heart racing. James was in the kitchen, dressed in a suit, pouring coffee into a travel mug. He glanced up when she entered, nodded once, then went back to what he was doing. "There's coffee in the pot," he said. "Bread in the cabinet if you want toast. I have to leave for work." "Okay," Elena whispered. He grabbed his briefcase and keys, then paused at the door. "The house rules are on the counter. Read them." He left without another word. Elena stood frozen for a moment, then walked to the counter. There was a typed sheet of paper, neatly organized with bullet points. The header read, "House Guidelines." She read through them slowly, her English struggling with some words but understanding enough. She had free access to the entire house except James's home office. She could use the kitchen whenever she wanted. There was a washer and dryer in the basement. The thermostat could be adjusted if she was too hot or cold. Wi-Fi password was written at the bottom. It read like instructions for a house guest, not a wife. There was nothing about cooking his meals. Nothing about cleaning schedules. Nothing about what he expected from her as a spouse. It was almost businesslike, detached, like he'd written instructions for someone staying at an Airbnb. Elena spent that first day exploring the house nervously, still not quite believing she was allowed to touch anything. The refrigerator was stocked with food. The living room had a large television she didn't know how to use. There were books on shelves, all in English. By the time James came home that evening, Elena had made herself a simple dinner and cleaned everything twice, anxious to at least appear useful. James walked past the kitchen, gave her another brief nod, and went upstairs. She heard the shower running, then his bedroom door close. They didn't speak again that night. The pattern continued for days. James left early, came home late. They existed in the same house like ghosts, barely acknowledging each other. Elena tried once to ask if he wanted dinner, but he'd simply said, "I'll handle my own meals. Thanks." And that was that. She video called her mother when James wasn't home, forcing a smile, lying that everything was wonderful. Natalia's surgery had gone well. They had enough money for medicine. Her mother looked less tired. That helped a little, but Elena felt like she was suffocating. She didn't understand what was happening. Why had James brought her here if he wanted nothing to do with her? Why marry her at all? 2 weeks after her arrival, everything changed. Elena came downstairs one morning to find an envelope on the kitchen counter with her name on it. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a bank card. Attached to it was a piece of paper with a PIN number and account information. And underneath, a handwritten note in clear, simple English so she could understand. "Elena, this account is in your name only. I've deposited $10,000. This money is yours, no strings attached. Use it however you need. There's also a separate account where I'll add $1,000 each month for your personal use. The papers underneath are immigration forms. I've filled out my part. A lawyer will contact you next week to help with your citizenship application. You don't need to stay married to me to get citizenship. The lawyer will explain your options. You're free to leave whenever you want. If you choose to stay, that's fine too. But know that you have a choice. I'll help you either way. The house is yours to use as long as you need it. No expectations, no obligations, James." Elena read the note 3 times, her mind spinning. This didn't make sense. None of it made sense. Why would he give her money? Why would he help her get citizenship without demanding anything in return? Was this some kind of test, a trap? She looked at the bank card in her hand, solid and real. The account papers had her name printed on them. Official documents. This wasn't fake, but why? That evening when James came home, Elena was waiting in the living room. She'd spent all day trying to figure out what to say, what to ask. When he walked through the door, she stood up, clutching the envelope. "I don't understand," she said in careful English. "Why you do this?" James stopped, his briefcase still in his hand. For the first time since she'd arrived, he actually looked at her. Really looked at her. His expression was hard to read. "You don't need to understand," he said quietly. "You just need to know you have options." "But why bring me here?" Elena pressed, frustrated tears building. "Why marry me if you want nothing?" James was silent for a long moment. Then he set down his briefcase and ran a hand through his hair. He looked tired. More than tired. Worn down by something heavy. "It's complicated," he finally said. "I have time," Elena shot back, surprising herself with her boldness. "I have a lot of time because I know nobody here. I do nothing all day. So please explain." Something shifted in James's face. Maybe respect. Maybe just exhaustion. He gestured to the couch. "Sit down." Elena sat, her heart pounding. James remained standing, looking out the window as he spoke. 5 years ago, my sister got married," he began. "Arranged marriage to a man from our parents' church. She was 23. Didn't really know him, but our parents pushed it. Said it was the right thing to do. Traditional values and all that." He paused, his jaw tightening. "The guy turned out to be controlling, then abusive. Started small, like these things do, telling her what to wear, who she could see. Then it got worse. She called me crying one night, begging for help. I told her to leave. I'd pay for everything, lawyers, apartment, whatever she needed." Elena watched his reflection in the window. His hands were clenched. She said she couldn't. She had no money of her own. No job. Her visa was dependent on his. She felt trapped. "I told her I'd figure it out. Just give me a few days to arrange things." His voice cracked slightly. She died 3 days later. He claimed she fell down the stairs. Police ruled it an accident. Elena's hand went to her mouth. "I knew it wasn't an accident," James continued, "but I couldn't prove anything. And I kept thinking, if she'd just had her own money, her own way out, maybe she'd still be alive. She died because she felt like she had no choices." He finally turned to look at Elena. His eyes were red. "After that, I started researching mail-order bride agencies. I found out most of these women are in desperate situations. Some end up with decent men, but a lot don't. And even with the decent ones, they're trapped. No money, no legal status, no way out if things go bad. Just like my sister. Elena felt tears running down her face. So I decided to do something about it, James said simply. I marry women through these agencies. I give them money, help them get legal status, and make sure they know they can leave anytime. No strings. You're the 7th person I've done this for. 7th? Elena whispered. The other 6 are all doing fine now. 2 went back to their home countries with enough money to start over. 3 moved to different cities, got jobs, built new lives. 1 still emails me sometimes. They're all safe. That's what matters. Elena stared at him, trying to process this. You help us? That's all? That's all, James confirmed. I pay the agency, which is expensive. I provide housing and money until you figure out what you want to do. The lawyer helps make sure everything is legal. That's it. But why not just give money to charity? Elena asked. Why do this? James smiled sadly. Because charities can't get these women out of their contracts with the agencies. Can't give them legal status. Can't provide immediate safety. This way I can. It's not perfect, but it's something. Elena wiped her eyes, her mind reeling. Everything she'd thought about James, every fear she'd had, it was all wrong. He wasn't a man who'd bought himself a wife. He was a man trying to save women the way he couldn't save his sister. The money you sent my mother, she said slowly, for my sister's surgery. That was you. The agency handles the initial family payment. I sent extra to make sure it was enough. Fresh tears came. Elena had spent 2 weeks in this house, terrified and confused, thinking she was trapped with a cold, uncaring man. When actually he'd been giving her freedom. I don't know what to say, she managed. You don't have to say anything, James replied. Just live your life. Use the money to take English classes if you want. Explore the city. Figure out what makes you happy. Stay here as long as you need or leave tomorrow. It's your choice. For the first time since arriving in America, Elena felt like she could breathe. The weight that had been crushing her chest for weeks suddenly lifted. She wasn't trapped. She wasn't owned. She had choices. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. James nodded and picked up his briefcase. I'll order some food. Chinese okay? Elena nodded, unable to speak. That night they ate together in awkward silence, but it was different now. Not uncomfortable. Just 2 strangers trying to figure out how to exist in the same space. As Elena went to bed that night, she looked at the bank card on her nightstand. Tomorrow she'd start figuring out what her new life could be. She'd start learning English properly. Maybe explore the neighborhood. Maybe call the lawyer and understand her options. For the first time since leaving home, Elena fell asleep without crying. She fell asleep with something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. The next morning felt different. Elena woke up, and for the first time since arriving, she didn't feel that crushing weight of fear on her chest. She understood now. James wasn't her captor. He was something she'd never expected. An ally. She came downstairs to find James already in the kitchen like always. But this time, when he looked up, he actually spoke first. There's a community college about 20 minutes from here, he said, sliding a brochure across the counter. They have English as a second language classes. Free for new immigrants. Might be worth checking out. Elena picked up the brochure, touched by the gesture. Thank you. I will look. James nodded and grabbed his coffee. As he headed for the door, Elena found herself speaking up. James, why you really do this? There must be easier ways to help. He paused, his back to her. My sister's name was Rebecca. She loved painting. Had all these dreams of opening her own gallery someday. After she died, I found dozens of paintings in her storage unit. Beautiful work. She never got to show them to anyone because she was too busy surviving. He turned to face Elena. I do this because everyone deserves a chance to chase their dreams instead of just surviving, even if it's unconventional. With that, he left. Elena stood holding the brochure, her eyes wet. That afternoon, she took her new bank card and caught a bus for the first time. It took her 3 tries and a lot of nervous hand gestures before she figured out the route, but eventually she made it to the community college. The campus was huge and intimidating, but a kind woman at the admissions desk helped her sign up for ESL classes starting the following week. On the bus ride home, Elena felt something unfamiliar. Pride. She'd navigated a foreign city by herself, enrolled in school, taken real steps toward building a life. Small steps, sure, but they were hers. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Elna went to her English classes 3 mornings a week. She practiced speaking with her teacher and other students from different countries. She studied in the afternoons. James continued working his long hours, but occasionally they'd cross paths in the kitchen. The conversations were brief, but growing easier. "How are your classes?" he'd ask. "Good. Learning many new words," she'd reply. "That's good." It wasn't much, but it was something. The house felt less like a prison and more like a temporary shelter while she found her footing. One evening, about a month after their revealing conversation, Elena decided to cook a traditional dish from her homeland. She'd been craving the familiar taste of home, and cooking helped her feel less adrift. She made stuffed cabbage rolls, filling the house with the smell of herbs and tomatoes. James came home to find the kitchen filled with delicious aromas. He stopped in the doorway, surprised. "What's all this?" "I cooked dinner," Elena said, suddenly nervous. "From my country. I make too much. You want some?" She half expected him to decline like always, but instead James set down his briefcase. "Yeah, actually. That smells amazing. I haven't had a home-cooked meal in years." They sat at the dining table together, really together for the first time. Elena watched nervously as James took his first bite. His eyes widened. "This is incredible," he said. "What's it called?" "Golubtsi," Elena said, then attempted the English. "Cabbage rolls. Well, they're fantastic." Something relaxed in Elena's chest. They ate in comfortable silence for a while before James spoke again. "I've been meaning to tell you, the lawyer says your paperwork is moving along well. You should have your interview in a few months. After that, you'll be on track for a green card." "And you?" Elena asked carefully. "What happens to you after I get green card?" James shrugged. "Nothing changes for me. I go back to work. Eventually help someone else." Elena set down her fork. "How you afford this?" "The agencies, the money, the lawyer. It must cost so much." "I do well at my job," James said simply. "I don't spend much on myself. No family of my own. This feels like the right way to use it." "But you could have family," Elena said. "Why you don't find wife?" "Real wife?" James looked at his plate. "Tried that once. Didn't work out. Some people aren't meant for that kind of life. I'm useful this way instead." There was a deep sadness in his voice that made Elena's heart ache. This man who'd saved her, who'd saved 6 others, he was alone. Completely alone. By choice maybe, but alone nonetheless. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Don't be." James met her eyes and smiled slightly. "Seriously, thank you for dinner. Best meal I've had in forever." After that night, things shifted between them. Not dramatically, but gradually. Elena started cooking most evenings, always making extra. James stopped working quite as late. They'd eat together, have simple conversations about their days. Elena told him about her classmates. A woman from Syria who'd been a doctor back home. A man from Honduras who dreamed of opening a restaurant. James told her about difficult clients and frustrating projects. They weren't deep conversations, but they were real. Elena also started exploring the city more. She found a library and got a card. Discovered parks where she'd sit and read her English textbooks. Made a few tentative friends in her classes. Her world was expanding, slowly but surely. 2 months after her arrival, Elena was studying at the dining room table when James came home early, which was unusual. He looked stressed, his jaw tight. "Everything okay?" Elena asked. "Yeah, just a long day." But his tone said otherwise. "You want to talk?" she offered. James hesitated, then sat down across from her. "Client meeting went badly. Sometimes I wonder if I'm actually any good at what I do." Elena smiled. "You help people find their freedom. You're good at what you do." James laughed, a real laugh that transformed his serious face. "I meant my actual job. Business consulting." "Oh." Elena felt her cheeks flush. "Right, but still you help people. That matters more than business meetings." "Maybe," James said, rubbing his face. "Sometimes I just feel like I'm going through the motions, you know? Work to earn money to help people, but then no time to actually connect with anyone." "You connect with me," Elena said softly. James looked surprised. "I guess we do talk more now, don't we?" "Yes, I like it. I like our dinners." Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding. Neither of them had expected this arrangement to become something resembling friendship, but somehow it had. "I like them too," James admitted. That weekend, James did something he'd never done before. He didn't go into his office or bury himself in work. Instead, he knocked on Elena's door mid-morning. "Want to see the city? I could show you around if you're interested." Elena was shocked but quickly agreed. They spent the day walking through downtown, James pointing out landmarks and useful places. The library, the courthouse where she'd eventually have her citizenship interview, a European grocery store that carried foods from her region. "Thought you might like to know this place exists," James said. "They import stuff from all over Eastern Europe." Elena wandered the aisles with tears in her eyes, finding candies from her childhood, the exact tea her mother used to make. Small pieces of home thousands of miles away. "Thank you," she told James, "for showing me this, for all of it." As weeks turned into months, Elena's English improved dramatically. She could hold full conversations now, understand movies, even joke around with her classmates. She'd gained confidence, walking with her head higher, smiling more easily. She also noticed things about James she hadn't before. The way he left sticky notes around the house with new English words he thought she should learn. How he'd bought a coffee maker that did fancy drinks after she'd mentioned missing the European-style coffee. Small kindnesses he never drew attention to. One evening after dinner, Elena was washing dishes when James came to help dry them. It had become their routine. "Can I ask you something personal?" Elena ventured. "Sure. Your sister, Rebecca. You think she would be proud of what you do?" James was quiet for a long moment, carefully drying a plate. "I hope so. I think about her every time I do this. Wonder if she'd think I was crazy or if she'd understand." "She would understand," Elena said with certainty. "She would be proud. I'm sure of it." James smiled, a real warm smile that reached his eyes. "Thanks, Elena. I'm proud too," she added, "of what you do, and proud of me also. I never think I could live in America, learn English, make life here. But I'm doing it." "You absolutely are," James agreed. "You're doing great." Elena dried her hands and turned to face him. "I want to help. The other women you bring, I can help them learn English. Show them the city. Befriend when they scared. Please let me help." James looked touched. "You'd do that?" "Of course. Someone helped me. Now I help them." "That's really generous, Elena." "Yeah, if you want to help the next person, I think that would be amazing." They finished the dishes together, working in comfortable silence. Elena felt something shift in her heart. James had given her freedom, safety, opportunity. But more than that, he'd shown her that kindness existed in unexpected places. That not all men wanted to control or own. Some just wanted to help, and in helping her, he'd given her purpose. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something. Not just a new life for herself, but maybe a way to help others too. As Elena went to bed that night, she realized something surprising. She wasn't counting down the days until she could leave anymore. She was actually happy here. Not because she had to be, but because she wanted to be. It was a strange feeling, but a good one. The house that had felt like a prison now felt like home, and the man she'd feared now felt like family. Nothing about this situation was normal, but somehow it was working. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning in late October. Elena was making breakfast when James's phone rang. She heard him answer it in the other room, his voice professional at first. Then it shifted, got harder, angry. "No, you listen to me," James said, his voice rising. "That's none of your business. What I do with my own money is my choice." Elena froze, listening. She'd never heard James sound like this. "I don't care what you think the agreement was," James continued. "These are human beings, not products. I'm not going to—" He stopped, listening. Then his voice went cold. "Is that a threat?" Elena's stomach dropped. James appeared in the kitchen doorway a moment later, his face pale, jaw clenched. He looked at Elena like he was seeing her for the first time in weeks, and the expression on his face scared her. "What's wrong?" she asked. James ran his hand through his hair. "That was someone from the agency. They've figured out what I've been doing, that I'm not actually keeping the women as wives, that I'm helping them leave." "So?" Elena said, confused. "You pay them. What they care what happens after. Apparently they care a lot." James sat down heavily at the kitchen table. "Other men are complaining, saying if word gets out that some guy is just giving these women money and freedom, it ruins the whole business model, makes other women think they should get better treatment." "Good," Elena said fiercely. "They should get better treatment. I agree. But the agency doesn't see it that way. They're threatening to report me to immigration, claim the marriages are fraudulent. They could have you deported, Elena. All the other women I've helped too. They could ruin everything. The coffee pot behind Elena started to beep, but she didn't move. Her mind was racing. Deported. Sent back home right when she was finally building something here. Right when her family was stable, her sister healthy, her future bright. What we do? She asked quietly. I don't know yet, James admitted. I need to call my lawyer. Figure out our options. But Elena, I'm so sorry. I never thought they'd come after you. I thought I was being careful. Elena sat down across from him. Her hands were shaking, but her voice came out steady. Don't apologize. You give me life I never dream of having. Whatever happens, I'm grateful. You shouldn't have to be grateful for basic human dignity, James said bitterly. Over the next few days, the situation got worse. James's lawyer explained that while the marriages were technically legal, if the agency pushed hard enough, immigration could investigate. They could claim James had committed marriage fraud on a systematic scale. Even though his intentions were good, the law wasn't always about intentions. James barely slept. Elena would wake up at 3 a.m. and find him at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers, his face haggard. You should rest, she told him one night. I can't. I'm trying to figure out how to protect you. All of you. All of us. The other women. If immigration starts digging, they'll find all 7 of you. Everyone I've tried to help could get caught in this. Elena felt a chill. 6 other women out there living their new lives, and now they were all at risk because James had tried to do something good. Maybe I should just go, Elena said softly. Go back home. Then they have no case. No. James looked up, his eyes fierce. That's exactly what they want, to scare you into giving up. I won't let that happen. But James, no, Elena, I started this to give women choices. I'm not going to take away yours now. A week later, Immigration Services sent a letter. They wanted to interview Elena and James about their marriage. Standard procedure, the letter claimed, but the timing was obviously not a coincidence. The agency had made good on their threat. James's lawyer came over that evening to prep them. Her name was Ms. Chen, a sharp woman in her 40s with kind eyes. They're going to ask you everything, she explained. How you met when you got married, details about your daily life. They'll try to catch inconsistencies, try to prove the marriage isn't real. But it's not real, Elena said. Not in the traditional way. Legally, you are married, Ms. Chen corrected. What makes a marriage real is subjective. You live together. You share a home. That's more than some legitimate married couples can say. So we lie? Elena asked. No, you don't lie. But you don't volunteer information either. Answer what they ask, nothing more, James was pacing. This is insane. We're being punished for helping people. I know, Ms. Chen said sympathetically. But we work within the system we have. Now they're going to ask personal questions. What side of the bed you sleep on? What James has for breakfast? Elena, what's his favorite color? Elena blinked. I don't know. That's a problem. Real couples know these things. Ms. Chen pulled out a notepad. You both need to learn about each other fast. The next few days were surreal. James and Elena sat together every evening, quizzing each other like students cramming for an exam. Favorite foods, childhood memories, habits and quirks, things that couples in love would know without thinking. I hate mushrooms, James told her. Won't eat them. My ex used to hide them in sauces and I always noticed. I'm allergic to shellfish, Elena shared. Found out the hard way when I was 12. Very sick. What's your favorite season? James asked. Autumn. The colors. The cool air. Reminds me of home. Elena paused. What's yours? Never really thought about it. Maybe winter. I like when everything's quiet. They learned surface details easily enough. The deeper things were harder. How to look at each other like they were in love. How to act comfortable with casual touches. How to pretend this was anything other than what it was. 2 nights before the interview, Elena couldn't sleep. She found James in the living room staring out the window. Can't sleep either, he asked. Too nervous. Elena sat down beside him. James, what if they don't believe us? What if I get deported and your other women get in trouble? This is all because of me. This is because of the agency being greedy and cruel, James corrected. Don't you dare blame yourself. But if I wasn't here, if you weren't here, you'd be trapped in your village with no money and no future. Your sister might not have gotten her surgery. Your mother would still be drowning in debt. You being here changed all that. Elena felt tears building. I don't want to lose this. My classes, my friends, this life we built. I know it's not real, but it feels real to me now. James turned to look at her. Really look at her. What if we made it real? Elena's breath caught. What? Not like that, James said quickly. I mean, what if we stopped pretending this is temporary? You could stay, not because you have to, but because you want to. We work well together, don't we? We're friends. That's more than a lot of married people have. You want me to stay? Elena whispered. I don't want you to feel obligated, James said carefully. But yeah, I'd like you to stay. The house is less empty with you here, and your cooking is way better than my frozen dinners. Elena laughed through her tears. That's your reason. My cooking? It's one of them, James smiled. Look, I'm not proposing we suddenly become a romance novel, but maybe we could be partners? Actual partners in this weird situation we're in. Elena thought about it. She'd been so focused on eventual leaving that she hadn't let herself imagine staying. But sitting here with James, this man who'd given her everything and asked for nothing, she realized she didn't want to leave. Okay, she said, partners. They shook hands, and despite everything, they both laughed at the absurdity of it. The day of the interview arrived too quickly. Elena dressed carefully in a simple blue dress. James wore a suit. They drove to the immigration office in tense silence. The interviewer was a stern-looking man named Officer Rodriguez. He led them to a small room with a table and recording equipment. Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Volkov, thank you for coming in. This is a routine interview to verify the legitimacy of your marriage. Routine. Right. Let's start simple. How did you meet? James and Elena had practiced this. James answered smoothly about the agency, being honest about the arrangement but framing it carefully. And when did you realize you wanted to marry Elena specifically? Officer Rodriguez asked. Her eyes, James said, and it sounded so genuine that Elena almost believed it herself. She had these hopeful eyes in her photo despite everything. I wanted to give her the chance she deserved. The questions continued. What did they do on weekends? What side of the bed did Elena sleep on? What was James's morning routine? They answered carefully, sticking as close to truth as possible. Yes, they had separate bedrooms at first. Many couples did while adjusting to marriage. Yes, James traveled for work. Elena was taking classes. They were building a life together, just slowly. Then Officer Rodriguez pulled out a file. Mr. Mitchell, we've received information that suggests you've married multiple women through mail-order bride agencies over the past several years. 6 others, to be exact. James's face remained calm, but Elena saw his hand clench under the table. Can you explain that? The officer pressed. This was it. The moment everything could fall apart, James took a breath. Yes, I can explain that. And then he did something Elena never expected. He told the complete truth. He told Officer Rodriguez about Rebecca, about the women he'd helped, about giving them freedom and choices. He didn't hide anything or make excuses. He just laid it all out, his voice steady despite the risk. So you committed marriage fraud 7 times, Officer Rodriguez said when James finished. No, James said firmly. I married 7 women legally. I provided for them. I honored my commitments. What I did with my money and how we chose to structure our household is our business. Every one of those marriages was legal. But you never intended them to be real marriages. I intended to keep my vows. To provide and protect. That's real enough. Officer Rodriguez looked at Elena. And you, Ms. Volkov? Did you know about this arrangement when you married Mr. Mitchell? Elena lifted her chin. No, I thought it was traditional marriage. I was scared. But James gave me something better than traditional marriage. He gave me freedom, my choice, and I choose to stay. Why? The officer asked. Because, Elena said, and realized as she spoke that it was true. He's good man. He helps people. He helped me. That matters more than romance or tradition. We are partners. We are family. That's real marriage to me. Officer Rodriguez studied them both for a long moment. Then he closed his file. I'll be honest with you both. This case has raised red flags. But I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of fake marriages. People who can't stand each other pretending for a green card. This, he gestured between them. This is weird, but it's not fake. You two clearly care about each other. However that happened. Elena barely dared to breathe. I'm going to approve your case, Ms. Volkov. Officer Rodriguez continued. But Mr. Mitchell, I suggest you stop marrying people through these agencies. Find a better way to help if that's what you want to do, because next time you might not get an understanding officer." They left the building in a daze. Halfway to the car, it hit them both at the same time. They'd won. Elena laughed, giddy with relief. James grabbed her in a sudden hug, lifting her off her feet. "We did it," he said. "We did it," Elena echoed. But as they drove home, both of them knew the truth. The interview had revealed something neither had fully acknowledged until forced to say it out loud. This strange arrangement had become real. Somewhere along the way, without meaning to, they'd become exactly what they'd been pretending to be. A family. The weeks after the interview felt different. Lighter somehow. Elena had her approval letter for her green card application. The threat of deportation was gone. She could breathe again. But something else had shifted too. Something neither she nor James wanted to name. They'd always been careful with boundaries. Separate bedrooms. Respectful distance. But now, after standing together in that immigration office and calling each other family, those boundaries felt less necessary, more like habits than rules. James started coming home earlier. Elena noticed but didn't comment. They'd cook dinner together now instead of Elena just having food ready. James would chop vegetables while Elena prepared sauces, moving around each other in the kitchen like they'd done this for years. One evening, about a month after the interview, Elena was washing dishes when James came up beside her with a towel. Their routine, except this time when their hands touched passing a plate, neither of them pulled away immediately. "Elena," James said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you ever think about what happens next? I mean, you'll get your citizenship eventually. You could move out, live anywhere, do anything. Do you think about that?" Elena rinsed a glass slowly, considering. "Sometimes. But mostly I think about now. About this." She gestured around the kitchen. "I like this." "Me too," James admitted. "Which is weird, right? This whole thing was supposed to be temporary. A way station. But I don't want you to feel trapped into staying just because we went through all that immigration stuff." Elena dried her hands and turned to face him. "James, I'm not staying because I'm trapped. I'm staying because I want to. You understand? I choose this." "You deserve more than this, though," James said, his voice rough. "More than a fake marriage to some guy who's terrible at showing emotion." "Who says it's fake?" Elena asked softly. James stared at her. "What? We live together. We eat together. We talk about our days. We care about each other. We face problems together." Elena took a small step closer. Officer Rodriguez was right. "It's weird. But it's not fake. Not anymore." "Elena, I'm not asking for romantic love," Elena interrupted. "I know that's not what this is. But it's something. Something good. Something I don't want to lose." James looked at her for a long moment, and Elena saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Hope. Fear. "I don't want to lose it either," he finally said. "I just don't want you to settle. You could have a real relationship. Fall in love properly. I don't want to be the reason you miss out on that." Elena laughed softly. "You Americans. Always thinking love has to look one certain way. Where I'm from, we understand there are many kinds of love. Romantic love, family love, partnership love. Who says one is more real than the others?" "So what are we?" James asked. Elena thought about it. "We're us." "That's enough, isn't it?" James smiled, really smiled, and something in Elena's chest warmed. "Yeah, that's enough." They finished the dishes in comfortable silence, but something had been acknowledged. They weren't just surviving together anymore. They were choosing each other, actively, consciously. The next Saturday, James suggested they go shopping for new furniture. "The house is pretty sparse," he admitted. "I never bothered decorating much. But if you're staying, maybe we should make it feel more like a home." They spent the day at furniture stores, debating couch colors and arguing good-naturedly over throw pillows. Elena picked out artwork that reminded her of her homeland. James found a bookshelf for all Elena's English textbooks and novels. "We need photos," Elena declared as they were leaving the last store. "Photos of what?" "Us. This house has no pictures, no memories. We should fix that." So they stopped at a park on the way home and asked a passing jogger to take their photo. It was awkward at first, both of them stiff and unsure how to stand. Then James made a stupid joke about how bad they were at this, and Elena laughed, and the jogger caught that moment. Them laughing together, natural and real. When Elena got the photo printed and framed, she put it on the mantel. James came home that evening and stopped when he saw it. "We look happy," he said, surprised. "We are happy," Elena replied. "Aren't we?" "Yeah," James said, still staring at the photo. "We really are." Around this time, James got a call from Ms. Chen, his lawyer. She had news about the other women he'd helped. "The agency is backing off," she explained over speakerphone. "After your interview, word got around about what you've been doing. Some of the women you helped have been sharing their stories, not publicly, but in their communities. It's making it harder for the agency to operate." "So everyone's safe?" James asked. "Everyone's safe. In fact, one of the women wants to talk to you. She's a lawyer now. Passed the bar last month. Her name is Diana." James looked stunned. "Diana from 3 years ago?" "Really? Really? She's the one who actually helped with Officer Rodriguez. Turns out she works in immigration law now. She pulled some strings to make sure you got a fair hearing." After hanging up, James just sat there overwhelmed. "You okay?" Elena asked. I never knew if any of it mattered. If I was actually helping or just messing up people's lives in a different way. But Diana became a lawyer. She helped us. It mattered." "Of course it mattered," Elena said firmly. "You changed our lives. All of us." That evening, Diana called James directly. Elena listened to one side of the conversation, hearing James laugh more than she'd ever heard before. When he hung up, his eyes were wet. "She wants to start a legitimate organization to help women in situations like you were in, legal support, financial assistance, housing. She asked if I wanted to be involved." "What did you say?" "I said yes. Obviously yes." James ran his hands through his hair. "This could actually be something, Elena. A real way to help on a bigger scale." "You should do it," Elena encouraged. "You're good at this. Helping people. Making them feel safe." Over the next few months, James and Diana worked on building their organization. Elena helped too, translating documents into her language, sharing her story to help with fundraising, meeting with other women to understand what they needed most. The work was fulfilling in a way Elena had never experienced. She wasn't just building her own life anymore. She was helping build a system that would help countless others. Her English was fluent now. She'd started taking business classes at the community college, thinking about maybe managing parts of the organization someday. Her family was doing well back home. Natalia was healthy and excelling in school. Her mother had even started dating someone kind. Everything was falling into place. One evening in late spring, almost a year after Elena had first arrived, they were sitting on the new couch they'd picked out together, reviewing paperwork for the organization. James set down his pen and looked at Elena. "Can I tell you something? Always. When Rebecca died, I felt like I'd failed her. Like I'd never be able to make up for not being there when she needed me. I thought this," he gestured vaguely, "helping people was just about easing guilt. Doing penance, and now?" Elena asked softly. "Now I realize it's more than that. You helped me see that. This isn't about guilt anymore. It's about purpose. About building something good." "You gave me that." Elena felt her throat tighten. "You gave me my life back. I think we're even." James laughed. "I don't think it works that way." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Elena said something she'd been thinking about for weeks. "James, can I ask you a question? You don't have to answer if you don't want." "Okay. Would you ever want this to be more? Not because you have to. Not because of immigration or obligation, just because?" James turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. "Elena, I care about you a lot. But I don't want you to feel pressured. You're free now. Truly free. You could leave tomorrow and build whatever life you want. I don't want to be the thing that holds you back." "What if you're not holding me back?" Elena asked. "What if you're the thing I'm choosing to move forward with?" "Are you sure? Really sure? Because I'm not easy. I'm emotionally constipated according to my ex. I work too much. I'm not romantic. Elena kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. When she pulled back, James was staring at her in shock. "I'm sure," Elena said. "Are you?" James's answer was to kiss her back. Properly this time, and it felt like coming home. They took things slowly after that. No rush, no pressure. They'd built something real over months of shared dinners and quiet conversations and supporting each other through challenges. The romance, when it came, was just another layer on a foundation that was already solid. 6 months later, James took Elena to meet Rebecca's parents. He'd been estranged from them since Rebecca's death, blaming them partly for pushing her into that marriage. But he was ready to try reconnecting. They were nervous, uncertain. But when James introduced Elena and explained everything they'd built together, both the organization and their relationship, his mother cried.